Hey guys, Christy here, and today I'm going to talk about the Once Upon a February Readathon. Now, this was a readathon that went through the whole month of February, and it was so much fun. I absolutely loved it because all of the prompts had to do with fairy tales, and I was able to co-host it with a bunch of other wonderful ladies who are linked down below. And it was just a really fun time for me because as you guys know, I stopped working because baby is coming really soon. And so it was just a really great way for me to just like stay connected and keep reading. And I really love getting to chat with the ladies on a regular basis and getting to meet them through reading sprints and do all that as well. So also I'm excited to say that I achieved fairy godmother status, which means you fulfill all 12 of the prompts for the readathon. So without further ado, I'm going to talk about all of the books that I read. So I did a combination of some real books, some ebooks, and some audiobooks, a little bit of everything this month. So it was a lot of fun just getting to experience like all the different types of media out there and ways that you can read. So the first book I'm going to talk about is Cinder, which I got from the library. So I read it as an actual physical book, but I had to turn it back in. And this book fulfills the prompt for midnight last to read a book because I feel like everybody in the world has read Cinder but me. And it also fulfilled a couple of other prompts, Evil Stepmother, and red on the cover. So for this one, it actually knocked out 3 for me, so it was really great. And as far as what I thought of the book, I actually loved it. It was a really good time. I really loved just the sweet YA romance. It had all the classic Cinderella vibes with a sci-fi twist because Cinderella is a cyborg, meaning she has like a robot foot and like a robot arm, and she's also a mechanic. So definitely a different type of Cinderella than I'm used to reading, but she still ends up meeting the prince and, you know, the usual. And it was just a really, really great time. I really enjoyed it. Definitely reminded me of my teenage years reading lots of great YA books. I read through it really quickly. I'm just so glad I picked this up. I'm so glad I finally read it. I didn't know it was gonna be a series, so now I'm like, oh, now I gotta keep going. I thought it was like a standalone, which is hard because with the baby coming, I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to have time to like read through a whole series, but hopefully I'll have time and maybe I can find it on audiobook as well. So next I want to talk about the books that I read on my Kindle, all the ebooks. And the first one is called The Reluctant Godfather, another Cinderella retelling. But this one is, again, a very different take on the Cinderella tale because it's told from the perspective of the fairy godfather, not a fairy godmother. So this book actually fulfilled the prompt Thumbelina, a short book. It was pretty short to read, but it was so cute. It was really silly. It was just like this super silly, goofy spin on Cinderella that was very, very enjoyable. And I know Lindsay from the BFG and Celestia both recommended this book recently, so that's a huge part of the reason why I picked this up, and I really enjoyed it just like they did. It was super cute. Another great Cinderella retelling to add to the mix. So if you like Cinderella retellings, go ahead and pick up The Reluctant Godfather. It's really cute. Okay, next I read The Wicked Prince. And you guys, this book surprised me how much I loved it. It's definitely making my unputdownable list of the year because it just captivated me right from the start, and I stayed up so late finishing this book. I think it was like 2 or 3 in the morning. And with a little baby, that's saying something because I'm tired. So for me to stay up that late finishing a book these days, that definitely shows you how good it is. And what was so amazing about this book? Well, first of all, The Wicked Prince fulfills the prompts marry men, male main character, and then I also used it for long locks, a girl with long hair on the cover. It also fulfills the prompt for the gender flipped retelling, even though I actually read another book that fulfills that as well. So this story is a retelling of Robin Hood, only Robin is the girl. And in the very beginning of the story, Prince John, you know, the evil villain, he's a notorious villain, so that could probably fulfill that prompt as well. He actually captures Robin Hood and all of her men, all of the people helping her, and gives her an ultimatum. He says, either I can execute you or you can marry me. And so of course Robin chooses to live and marry him, and she's thrust into this marriage of convenience / enemies to lovers, really enemies to lovers type of relationship. But this book was just phenomenal because we start to find out that Prince John isn't really the villain that we thought he was, and there's a lot more to him than meets the eye. There's a lot more going on behind the scenes in the kingdom, and Robin is slowly figuring these things out. And I think what made this book so phenomenal is just the progression of the romance was just so well done. And as a writer, I was like, I need to study this. This was really good. This was really well done. Just how the author, it was by Celeste Baxendale, how she just took you from like, there's no way these two are ever going to be like on good terms, to like, oh my gosh, now they're like madly in love. I mean, this book just captured my heart. Like, the romance was just that good. Like, I was just like, I almost teared up at one point because it was just so sweet. So I highly, highly recommend The Wicked Prince. So the next book I read on Kindle was Hunting Sirens, which I actually did as a buddy read with some of my fellow co-hosts from the readathon, and that was a lot of fun. And this book is actually second in a series after Becoming Hook, which was one of the first books I ever read when I first joined YouTube, so it was really fun to just continue with this series. And I thought this book was also phenomenal. I really, really enjoyed it. This one I used to fill the prompt for the gender flipped retelling, because it was like a gender flipped Little Mermaid, where you have this girl named Treva and she is hunting sirens. So sirens are like mythical creatures. They're kind of like mermaids, and they call to humans, and then the humans jump in the water and usually drown. So what's happening in Treva's world is that all of the people on her island are starving because they can't get off the island. They can't sail in ships. They can't get supplies or anything like that, because the sirens, every time they try to go into the water or get even close to it, they're calling the humans into the water to drown them. So that's what kind of why she decides she's going to take care of this problem and start killing all the sirens so that her people can have food and get off their island. Well, a bunch of stuff ends up happening, and there's this one siren. Oh, there is one very important thing that I left out, and that the reason why Treva decides to take up this task is because she's actually deaf. So I thought that was really, really cool. It just having a character that was deaf. I don't think I've ever read a book where the character was deaf before, the main character, or maybe, I don't even know if I've read any books where like a character was deaf. And so it was really cool. I was able to learn a lot of things about, you know, sign language and just kind of what they go through not being able to hear. But in this case, it was kind of like her superpower. Like, she was able to withstand the call of the sirens because she couldn't hear them. And along comes this very special siren that does not have a voice, actually happens to be a male, so he can't call to the humans and make them fall to their death. And he ends up rescuing her. So I don't want to ruin it. I don't want to give any spoilers, but let me just say there's a lot of drama. It is definitely enemies to lovers. It was so good. I think Mary Meckham, the author, does a phenomenal job of like like writing that climactic love scene at the end. Like, she did an amazing job in Becoming Hook. Same thing this book. It was just like, oh yes. I don't know. I felt like I was watching a movie. Like, it was just so beautiful. It was so sweet. I really love this story. So if you'd like to try a a little flip, a little twist on The Little Mermaid, then I highly recommend Hunting Sirens. It is a really, really great time. So next I'm going to talk about some books that I did a combination of reading them, the actual book and audiobook, because during the day I would listen to it on audiobook, and then at night is usually when I like to read. So the first book I read / listened to was Ogre Enchanted. And this came highly recommended from Katie from Paperbacks and Ponytails, so I've been meaning to read it for a really long time. It's been on my TBR for a while, so I was so excited to finally get to it. And this book was super cute. If you've ever seen Ella Enchanted, this is kind of like the companion novel to Ella Enchanted, where we encounter the same fairy that gave Ella her gift, or some would say curse, of obedience. She ends up causing complications for this poor girl named Evie in Ogre Enchanted. And what Lucinda does is she overhears this boy proposing to her, and Evie does not love this boy, so of course she turns him down. And she does it very nicely, but still she turns him down. Well, Lucinda did not like this, so she changes Evie into an ogre and says that the only way you can become human again is if somebody proposes to you as an ogre and you accept. So she has quite a problem because she's now very ugly and stinky and wants to eat everything. She's like full on ogre, but still kind of has like her human capabilities. Like she's still able to sort of think as a human, but slowly the ogre is like trying to take over. So this book was just really, really cute because the whole time you're like, what is she gonna do? Like, who is gonna love her? Like, who's she gonna find? And it keeps you guessing right up until the very end. Like, I didn't know what was gonna happen. So I definitely recommend this for more, this is definitely more of like a middle grade story, but you know, even being old, I still really enjoyed it as well. Oh, also I forgot to mention that Ogre Enchanted filled the prompt for Magical Creature. So next I read The Rogue Princess by Melanie Sellier, and she's definitely one of my auto-buy authors. I just love all of her work. I love all of her fairy tale retellings, and this one was a Puss in Boots retelling. Let me see if I can show you. There's like a cat on the cover, which I used for the prompt a lesser no retelling, and I think I used it for one more. I can't remember. This would also be Magical Creature as well, because the cat came from the Palace of Light, and he talks, and he basically helps this girl named Kalila or Callie, something like that. He helps her to find love and solve this big mystery with what's happening with this like rogue caravan that's just kind of like terrorizing the kingdom. So this book was really cute. It was really fun. I really liked the romance. Definitely another one of my favorites from Melanie. Oh, and I'm so excited because in Melanie's newsletter, she just announced that since she's now finished the series, there's one more book I need to read in the Four Kingdoms series. She is going to actually start a brand new fairy tale retelling series. So it's going to be set in a completely different world, and she's going to revisit all the retellings, do like a different sort of retelling for all the different fairy tales. So I'm really excited to see what she comes up with, what she has to say, because to me, she's like the queen of fairy tales. She's like the one that got a lot of people started in reading fairy tale retellings and a lot of authors in writing fairy tale retellings. So she's definitely the queen to me. So I can't wait to see what she comes up with next. Next book I listened to purely on audio, and that was A Mermaid's Tale, or The Mermaid's Tale by L.E. Richmond. And this book I used to fulfill the prompt for musical voice, because she uses her voice to sing just like any classic mermaid would. I wanted to read an actual Snow Queen retelling for the On a Quest prompt, but I didn't end up getting to it in time, so I'll have to pick that up later. But anyways, The Mermaid's Tale was really good. It was very suspenseful. It wasn't really a Little Mermaid retelling in the classic sense. I know Katie from Paperbacks and Ponytails mentioned that she felt like it was the story of what happened like generations later, like after The Little Mermaid. And I definitely felt that way too. Like it wasn't like a true Little Mermaid retelling. However, there were like elements to it. Like there's like a sea enchantress and things like that. But basically the premise of this story is that this girl named Lachlan lives underwater, but she does not have a tail. She actually has legs as part of a curse that the sea enchantress like put on her family. And so she's like on this mission, on this quest to break the curse, and there's all these different characters and things that happen along the way. It was very suspenseful. And the ending, oh my gosh, it is quite a cliffhanger. I hope that doesn't ruin anyone from picking up this book, because I don't know when the second one's coming out, but I was definitely like, oh, why did you do this to me? I need that second book. So hopefully it will be out soon, because it's definitely like, how in the world are they gonna get through this? Like, what are they gonna do? So that's all I'll say about that book. If you love the world of the sea and underwater and mermaids, then I highly recommend A Mermaid's Tale. Okay, now for my bonus book. So I put this lovely little book on hold, Powerless, around, I don't know, it was like Christmas time, maybe before Christmas time. I can't remember. It was like a long time ago, several months ago. And I've been waiting for it to come in from the library ever since. So it finally came in the middle of February, and I was like, okay, I must stop everything and read this book. So but I was like, I don't know if it even fulfills any prompts, but I'm gonna read it anyway. So I didn't even actually include it on any of the prompts. I'm sure it does, but I just read it as extra. And it's pretty thick. So I did a combination of audiobook and reading it as well. But I got through it in like maybe a day and a half. Like, it was definitely unputdownable. I thought this book was amazing. It was so good. It just kind of reminds you of like all the great YA books from the past, like The Hunger Games and Divergent and things like that. And I have to say that something that was very interesting about this book in the audio format is that the guy that was reading the guy voice, because there was like dual point of view, so there was a girl and there was a guy, and the guy sounded so much like Finnick Odair from The Hunger Games that it just made me, I was like in that world. I was like, oh yes. But basically what this book is about is it's fantasy, and there are people called elites, and the elites all have powers. And then there are people that have no powers at all, and they are called the ordinaries. And for whatever reason, the elites are really threatened by the ordinaries, and so they are charged to kill them. They want to completely eliminate all the ordinaries. They only want to have people in their world that have like powers. So what makes this story so interesting is that the main character, named Peyton, is an ordinary. She has no powers, but she lives in this world, and the only reason she has survived is because the whole time, ever since she was a child, she's been pretending that she is like a psychic, which sounds like it might be weird, but it's really not, because she's really just a good guesser. Like, she's really good at observing people, like what they look like, their emotions at the time. So she makes these like very educated guesses that make people think she has like the power to sort of read minds. So what ends up happening is that there's these trials that happen. I can't remember if it's every year or like from time to time, like they have it, and it's called the Purging. And it's all these elites, all these people with powers face off and show kind of what they can do. And some of them die. Not everybody dies. It's not completely like Hunger Games, like a fight to the death. It's just a very like violent battle, like all these trials and things that they do that some of them end up dying. So what ends up happening is Peyton gets called into the trials as an elite. However, she's not really an elite. She's an ordinary. She doesn't actually have any powers. So you're like, how in the world is she gonna survive this? So it's very, very exciting. Then on top of that, for whatever reason, they decided that they wanted the prince, one of the princes, there's two of them, to compete in the trials as well. And guess who paid in meats along the way? I think what made this book so addictive, so fun to read, is that the romance it's enemies to lovers for sure, but it's so well done. It doesn't feel like enemies to lovers because there's like this very obvious attraction that's happening from the start, but there is a huge obstacle in the way. Like they cannot be together. You know, they really, really can't be together. But there's like this electricity whenever they like are around each other, whenever they talk to each other. There's this like very fun banter that they have back and forth. It starts off they're sort of making fun of each other, but they're not like, but it's not like they're being rude. Like, I don't know, it's just something about it. Like, I think the author did a phenomenal job in just focusing on like the emotional tension that was happening between the two characters versus the actual physical tension. So that brings me to talk about some of the triggers, because this book definitely isn't for everyone, because this book was, I think, very clean on the romantic perspective, but there were definitely some other things. So I would consider this a level 1/level 2 because there's a lot of like just hand holding, they dance, they sort of kiss, but they get interrupted. It's like a very light kiss. I would say the only thing that's a little bit questionable is that one night Prince Kai has a bad dream and she goes in and like comforts him, like, and ends up like falling asleep next to him, but like nothing happens after that. So as far as the romance goes, I felt like it was very, very clean. That reminds me. So the prince in this book is named Kai, and in Cinder, the book, the prince is also named Kai. So I'm just wondering, like, why are all the princes named Kai? I don't know. Very interesting to me. And then it is a violent book, but I felt like it wasn't too over the top. Like, they say the word blood a lot, but it didn't really like connect with me. It was like, it didn't feel gory. Like, it wasn't crazy bad. Like, they say like, oh, so-and-so is like bleeding or whatever, but I felt like the violence was okay for me because there wasn't as much emotion attached as like, say, the Hunger Games. Like, I felt like the violence in the Hunger Games was just like so much more heartbreaking, and this just wasn't. It just was very surface level. It was just like a necessary evil for like what was happening in the trials, sort of thing. Last but not least, the language. I think this would knock a lot of people out because the characters really love to say the H word, they really love to say the D word. I want to say parts of the story, it seemed like it was on every other page at least once, sometimes twice. The most intense scenes, there was obviously a little bit more swearing going on. I found both B words in there. The SH word was in there a handful of times. There were just, I feel like it was pretty much like every curse word you would hear out and about in the streets or at a college campus or something like that, other than the F word. There were no F words, so that was really good. For me, the language is like, yeah, it's a little bit annoying, but I can ignore it. I can ignore that a lot more than like a sex scene or something like that. So I'm really glad that I was able to read it. And I get the hype. I totally get it, and I can't wait for book 2 to come out. Okay, well, that is all for today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you guys so much, all of you who participated in the Once Upon a February Readathon. It was so much fun. I've been loving seeing all of your posts and videos and things like that, and I definitely look forward to seeing some more. So I actually do hope to do at least one more video before baby comes, which as of today happens to be March 1st. And so I have 18 days till his due date. So we'll see, will he come on time? Will he be a little bit late? I don't know, but I really do hope to film at least one more video before he comes. But if this baby has other plans and he comes a little early, or I'm just, you know, not feeling up to it, then that might change. But if that does change, then I will definitely leave an announcement on the community tab. So anyway, I will hopefully see you guys really soon. Have a great day. Bye.